is the problem? Claire?
Well, there is, I mean, I think it's not a secret that there's a resentment of Omaha everywhere outside of Omaha. I mean, statewide, countywide, you do see that. On 911, it's structured that there are 4 voices on the user board from outside the city limits, and so there is representation from the whole service area.
Then why can't we mimic that?
Perhaps we can, and perhaps that would be a worthy goal.
I think we ought to. I don't like to see governments doing quasi-turf fights over things that don't matter. And I understand, I know there's people who think Omaha's some witch or something. It just baffles me no end. But anyway, I'd like to see us work toward what you just said, having more county people or something, you know, somehow make this thing work. It's really, I think it's an outrage that we can't get along on this thing. I don't like to hear it at all.
No, I think, Mike, that was the intent we talked about. I think the back office function was the first one to kind of see how it flows together. And then after having it flow a little bit and having the local elections settle themselves, then we can kind of see. I think the model that we talked about there may have been like the CVB model, where you can come together and hopefully see if you can articulate the governance piece in this merger piece, if it was to happen. Because, you know, right now, like Claire was saying, if my point to Marty is, if Marty would have went to the legislature and tried to put this thing there, the biggest fight would have been the Omaha mayor appointing people out in Western Douglas County.
Look at the building commission. I mean, Claire and I are on it. We get along most of the time. No, I mean, there's 2 city, 2 county, and 1 administrator. So, I mean,
Yep.
I don't get this sudden, like, Omaha's an enemy and we're gonna.
It's always been.
guards.
I don't think it's new.
I don't view Omaha as an enemy. By the same token, I think my neighbors and constituents want to have a voice in the process.
Well, you could be the representative on this board along with
Perhaps.
other county people.
Perhaps. I mean, I agree.
We wouldn't control it, and we wouldn't control
to
it.
address it.
Yeah, exactly. And we wouldn't control it, though.
I'm sorry?
We wouldn't control it in the current structure. The mayor would determine that. And I thought when I worked that thing out with Ben about an ex officio being from the county, it would come here, and they made it the assessor's office.
Well, I think we can make some changes. I think we already do.
Ariane, you want to say anything?
No, I just agree. I mean, I wasn't a supporter of a land bank to begin with because I felt it was a duplication of what we were currently doing, and that I voiced my concerns the other day that it takes away opportunity potentially for private citizens when the land bank is eating up all the properties. But I'm the one who shares with Claire, you know, right or wrong, that's the reality, is that people in Douglas County want someone who is their representative representing them. If you turn something over and it's their land and it's the city of Omaha and they have no representation, that's a problem. And that's the world we live in. And so I'm just concerned about that.
Mike? Well, you know, the LRC was a city-county school board operation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand the resistance. First of all, with all due respect to Dave, I was never really very happy with the kind of you know, inventory they had or the kind of abilities they had. They were locked into doing things, and by the time we got done with it, we were selling to a bunch of people who were just holding on to it for nothing. And yeah, with all due respect, I think that this Omaha Land Bank is a real good step toward getting rid of bad property and vacant lots and all this stuff. And I'd like to see us do a joint thing like we got the building commission, like 911, like so many other deals. I don't see why the people who live outside the county should feel like they're not represented. If they have actual representatives, that's what I'd like to see. And I think we should be able to bring that around. I think it's really important. But if the county people who live in the county, not in the city, don't want to get along and thinking about, isn't that area Green Acres? Isn't that out there in Hong Kong someplace?
You can get there. It might just not look like you
And
wanted
then
to.
you
like
wonder
the crime.
why they don't like us.
The legal description is, you know, it's just horrible out. That's ridiculous. And Kings Lake the same way. So anyway, I just think it's an opportunity. I hate to see the county miss, and if we miss it, so be it.
Okay, Chris, and then we're going to go on to the next.
I don't think you miss it. I think if you all agree with moving forward with trying to hash this thing out, like we were saying, I think you get there. It just doesn't look like it you want it to look, just like the crime lab. We can get there. It may not look like you want it to look.
Okay. State Street.
Is that a yes that we can move with shaping the other thing?
I like the way you're going. Okay.
Okay, I'm taking silence as consensus when we go to the next LRC meeting.
Okay.
In terms
With
of,
some dissent
in-
from the
in-
two rural
Okay.
people.
I mean, you're saying.
I mean,
that
we
move
can go
forward
with a shell to try to bring back to the board to see
Alright.
how this back door, the back office thing works.
It's a worthy goal, and I
Take
think
a look
it's-
at it.
Okay.
But then you have
Not
this
supporting
one.
it.
I'd like to see an interlocal that spells things out, that's what I'd like to see.
Do you want to do everything? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Do you want to? You have two separate things. You have the interlocal agreement that's now, and you have this other thing down the road potentially. Are you saying that you
Just
want
the
to see it all together, or just you're okay with going forward with the interlocal agreement?
Just the
One-
first.
Okay.
Baby
Foreclosure first.
All right. Good.
Go with that, but behind, start working out a shell for the other piece.
Right.
Are you
Right,
okay
okay.
with that interlocal to be on as early as next week, or would you?
Because otherwise you have to
Like
wait.
more
No, I
time.
need more time.
Yeah, let us have time to.
Come on.
I gotta talk to Dave.
The current interlocal that is in front of this subcommittee is for the very, very narrow purpose of transferring responsibility for the judicial foreclosure proceedings from our office to the land bank. They're just gonna do the legwork. That's all this, it looks long, but it's there's a lot of recitations in there that kind of talk about the legislative purpose behind land banks and how they have a little bit more flexibility to accomplish their end goals than prior tax foreclosure laws, which basically just consisted of seize it, sell it, and get it back on the tax rolls. And we wound up with properties in this cycle of foreclosure where Rick can tell you, over the last 20 years, this particular address has been here numerous times. So this is a very, very narrow proposed agreement, and the land banks board has already approved it.
Okay, if that is the case, then I might be comfortable, commissioners.
This is not even really anything touching on the backroom administrative overlaps that Commissioner Rogers has been talking about. This is simply, the county has an existing inventory of tax sale certificates. We're asking the Omaha Municipal Land Bank to conduct the foreclosure proceedings on the county's behalf, and we'll still have input and obviously make our knowledge and know-how available to them in any way that we can. But that's the only thing that this current interlocal agreement accomplishes. It does not get to any sort of merger, it does not get to any sort of validity between the LRC and the land bank. They're just agreeing to do what we
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you had something. Anything else?
No, I'm just saying, I'm willing to wait. If you gotta wait,
Anybody?
if you gotta wait 3 weeks, we wait 3
object to
weeks.
having
It'll.
it on next week?
I just want to go on.
I don't.
If we get it to review it sooner rather than later.
The one that Mr. Dolan just described, is that what?
They've already reviewed it. Your office already reviewed it, correct?
We have, and I can make, if it's all right, I can
What
send
do
it.
you place?
Yeah, I'll send electronic copies to all of the commissioners.
Great, so I mean, we can get it today.
Yes,
Fine.
I will go. As soon as we were done, as soon as that topic is closed, I'll leave and go send that. So,
Okay. I think topic's closed, we can put it on next week's agenda, and then give us the topics. State landfill, State Street landfill post.
Thank you.
renewal.
Good morning, commissioners and everyone else in attendance.
Good one.
I'm going to update you on a number of different environmental services items. First one is just to bring to your attention that we are in a process right now to update the post-closure permit that allows us to continue to monitor and operate and report on the State Street landfill, which is 126 on State Street. This particular time, the Department of Environmental Quality is requiring us to do a more intensive human health risk assessment, and so we'll be retaining a firm called Geosyntec to do that. This is a fairly specialized service, and they'll be completing that within the next couple of months. The item probably of most significance here for the meeting today, Waste Management, our partner, contracted partner at the Pheasant Point landfill, is requesting authorization for some service fees that would help them recover their costs that they have associated with some specialized services. And here's a description of what, and a representation of what they're looking to do. There's a thing called a frozen load dig out that's actually in place already. That's been approved before. And the one down at the bottom, the uncovered load issue, I'll speak to that right at the end. But some of these other things that they are requested to do, they incur costs for it, and they're not really able at this point to recover some of those costs. So digging out an excavator because of a load that comes in and kind of offloading a hard to handle load. These are for example, a load of telephone poles or something else that's really awkward to handle, that requires them to kind of stop what they're doing and to do some specific things for a particular customer. All of these things that are listed here would be charged specifically back to a particular customer. Waste Management is proposing then that for each ton or for each load, as it's designated here, that the county would also receive a portion of that revenue coming in. So this is what's being proposed. At this point, I realize this is the first time you've seen this. I'm mainly interested if there's any particular questions that you may have. We would probably bring this to the county board probably the first meeting in January.
So, Kim, what's the science like? Say, for okay, so let's say the top of 25.5, that's a certain percentage of 30. Is there any consistency in the percentages, or you just pick a number?
No, there's no consistency per se in the percentages. What's being reflected here, the DC rate is simply the $5, which is the consistent per ton amount that we receive, and so they've just captured that.
Okay.
Jeff?
Do you have a projected revenue number, an annual projected revenue number?
I have asked Waste Management to provide that. They are in the process of getting that number, so that'll be something that I would have for you when it comes to the county board. I'll have those projected as to what we would expect the additional revenue to be.
So these items are currently entering the landfill?
Right, with the exception of the frozen load dig out scenario and the uncovered load, those two things we already do. The uncovered load right now, we actually get $10, and that all comes back to the county. One of the things that I'm going to talk about next is a proposal that we stop picking up trash along Highway 36 simply from a safety standpoint. And we've got one employee out there with a pickup, and we've got trucks and everything else whizzing by at 50, 60 miles an hour, and I can show you kind of what that looks like. But we've gotten to the point where we're just
36 is the highway going to the land. There's the road
yes,
coming to the
yes.
landfill. Okay.
Right. And we would like to discontinue that particular service. And in response, I mean, Waste Management already has the obligation to pick up trash along Highway 36 and within 2 miles of the landfill. So that's where most of that debris that flies out is happening. And so I feel comfortable in recommending that we go from collecting all of that $10 to now that we're not going to, if we choose to discontinue that roadside pickup service, then we're not going to have that expense, that we're trying to cover some of that expense. So that's why I'm comfortable in going and splitting that. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in getting my head around the current situation is we do all of this except a couple of items, right?
All of these things are happening now. All of these things are happening now. What Waste Management is proposing is that for everything that's not highlighted in yellow, they would like to be able to recover some of their costs in the process of doing these things, because they do have extra costs. Right now, all the revenue they're getting is simply the per ton fee as part of this. So these would be additional fees for these difficult to handle situations.
And they've been handling these without this fee structure for how long?
Some of these are relatively new. Some of the liquid stuff is only new in the last few years because they didn't do a lot of that. Some of these other fees, they've basically been eating the cost of the additional manpower that's required for that. And so that's why they're coming back and asking for consideration for these additional fees.
So we entered into this contract with them some time ago, and they've been doing all of these things under that contract for that period of time. And now during the pendency of that contract, they're asking for this rate adjustment to be made part of that contract.
Correct.
Okay. And the incentive for us to do that is what?
Well,
What's in it for us?
what's in it for us, we are gonna get a little bit of revenue out of each one of these. Every time they do these services, we're gonna get a little bit of revenue out of those. I think it shows that we're in good faith working with them because we have total control over all the rates and the fees for that landfill.
But you don't know what that revenue totals.
No, I don't know that right offhand. I've asked for an estimate of that, and I will have that for you.
Okay, well, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but the what's in it for us should be like our first question, not what's in it for Waste Management to alleviate their whatever, or increase their profit margin. Presumably, they're making a profit now, or they wouldn't be doing this. Presumably, they speculated forward when they entered into this contract that it would be profitable to them, or they wouldn't be in business. So we're adjusting this significantly on the Waste Management side, and to a much lesser degree on the Douglas County side, which is the, if I hear you right, the only incentive for Douglas County to do this is that $5 Douglas County rate increase. Is there another incentive for us to do this that I'm missing?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, we
Then-
don't get any of that.
Then we
revenue
need to
right now.
monetize whatever the only incentive for us to do this is, to make a decision. And if that's gonna be on our agenda in January, it would seem to me that that would be kind of an upfront consideration for us rather than a back-end consideration for us. Otherwise, I mean, why do we do it? And if that $5 Douglas County rate increase is negligible, again, come back to why do it? I mean, we're not in the business, unless I'm wrong, of increasing Waste Management's profit margin, are we? We're not. That's not a motivation for Douglas County, is it? Right. Claire?
Thank you. I'm trying to, an uncovered load. I mean, that's referring to like a pickup, somebody coming out with a pickup that is
That's
not
referring
covered.
to anybody. If they come out there with some kind of a, whether it's an open truck or whatever, if they don't have a cover on that, they're assessed a $10 fee right now.
On top of what they would already be paid.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Liquid totes. I thought you couldn't put liquids into a landfill. I thought it was solid waste landfills.
Yeah, there's a solidification process that they offer right now, and there is a special rate that the board has approved in the last several years that talks about liquid solidification.
So they have to take this tote and dry out whatever's in there before they can bury it?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
I had 100 of those totes washed onto our farm during the flood, and I mean, or more. Now I'm gonna kind of dread ever dealing with them. Okay.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of handling that goes into that, and there's advance notice, and that's why, you know, some of the advance notice, like the no-show loads for solidification of asbestos. Waste Management has to go through a process of setting up for that.
Right.
And if somebody doesn't show, they've expended a whole bunch of stuff for a no-show. That's kind of what they're
Right.
talking about there.
Mike?
State Street is not the present landfill, is it? It's the-
No, that's the point is.
Okay. Well, I have a client who has an ongoing relationship with Waste Management, so I'm not commenting at all on Waste Management's rates or anything. But I am, on behalf of Douglas County, how long have we had a $5 rate in Is that the initial rate, or is this an increase?
The $5 surcharge, or the fee that is per ton, that has been in existence since the landfill's been there.
Well, I wonder whether, you know, I mean, I know that the landfill, supposed, when I read the last 145 years, and I was involved in the placement of the Pheasant Run, and it was difficult, particularly negotiating with Patrick. But anyhow, I really wonder whether we should, although it's 100 years away, whether we should try to beef up our rate so that when the time comes, if the time comes, that we find some place to relocate a landfill, which I don't think is available in Douglas County. If we have to pay Washington County through the nose or something, that we have the money ready to do it. That's my only comment, you know, that I'm concerned about Douglas County's income and no one else's.
Okay.
Ken, there currently are fees for most of these, are there not?
There are fees for just the 2 items in
Just
yellow.
the 2.
The frozen
Okay.
load one, you approved that rate just about a month or so ago.
Okay. I had it the other way around in my mind. Anything else on this? Yes, Chris?
Ken, can I ask a quick related question? I'm just curious, that Sarpy County story a couple of days or a week ago about that landfill. Have you had any discussions with them?
What was the specifics of that?
It was a story in the Herald about Sarpy County's landfills and
Transfer station?
yeah, something like
Closing
that.
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Sarpy County landfill's closed. They're utilizing the transfer station. That is a Waste Connections facility, transferring majority, if not all, of that waste now that was being landfilled at Sarpy County in that facility, now going to Butler County. It's about a 60-mile trip one way.
So are we just not in play because we're us, or what?
Pardon me?
Are we just not in option because we're Douglas County, or is Butler close?
Yeah, see, Waste Connections
Has
is
their
the
own
owner
site.
operator of that facility in David City, Butler
Okay.
County.
Okay.
And so there's some other dynamics kind of going on with that as well. So,
Really?
so
Big money.
yeah. This past year and a half or so ago, Waste Connections wanted to approach Butler County to expand the landfill. Butler County said no. And so I think Waste Connections, from what I can tell, they are probably looking for some other potential options. They have some other landfills where they can transport stuff there. A Butler County supervisor contacted me. This has been a year and a half or so ago, and just asking, you know, is the Pheasant Point landfill available if we had to go there, if our facility's closed? Well, yeah, there isn't a prohibition for anyone outside of Douglas County bringing waste here. I mean, that's a business decision on their part, but so that
Because
was-
ours, I recall ours was mentioned in that article, if I read it, and the lifespan of
Yes.
our landfill.
Just how
I didn't see the article.
Okay.
Jim?
Can I have a copy of this PowerPoint, kind of analog guy in the digital age, and give you a copy of that?
I can get you a PDF of that, yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I guess my only, comment would be on the dollars. I mean, what are we talking about in terms of, what does that mean to waste management? What does that mean to Douglas County? It's hard to make an informed decision on a chart that doesn't have any fiscal impact summary.
Okay.
And a quick observation, would it be fair to say Douglas County should get 10% of the fee they charge?
What, 924?
There's no way for us to sit here and say, okay, $300 for digging out excavator per load. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Does anybody know? I mean, I don't know. So how you get to the rate is actually really kind of important, I would guess.
Let's have at the next meeting, Waste Management come and explain how they arrived at these rates. Otherwise, they'll be called when we have these rates in front of us at the county board, and we'll be taking up all that time at the county board. Let's do it in the committee.
I'll have some more detailed discussions with them as to how they arrived at the rate and so on, and I'll have all that information for you.
Okay, Mike?
Just a question from Douglas County's point of view. Some of these liquid dumping and so forth, is any of that toxic, or what is this that we're dumping in that we would be dumping?
Any of these materials, if they're coming into the landfill, the generator has to provide a manifest, or has to provide a profile, excuse me,
Okay.
a profile that shows what it is they're dumping, and that they look at that. It can't be, my understanding, it can't be anything that's going to be quote unquote hazardous waste. Those things can't go in there. There may be some special waste type things that are allowed in there, but there's a manifest that then goes with that. It shows that profile, and anytime a truck comes into the site, that's part of them weighing in and so on. They have to show that, and then it's related back to that particular account.
And this is, I've kept my distance from them so far that I'm asking basic questions. So, is there a construction debris site at our Pheasant Mountain?
Not a separate one.
Okay, is there any reason why we shouldn't do that? It seems like, from what I understand, they may be going to Missouri Valley and other places, and there've been some problems there. Do we want to get into that or not? I mean, it can get, there's a real need, I think, for construction debris. Again, this is pulling from way back when.
Oh, they take construction debris
Sure.
there.
Okay, we do?
Yes, and that's part of, if you remember the special event authority that the board gave to me a number of years ago, I think 2009, that allows some negotiation for those types of things. And so Waste Management is pretty aggressive in going after those
Okay,
kinds
we're
of projects.
charging more for that?
It just depends on what the material is.
All right, and I've kept my distance so far, so I'm not gonna ask any more questions, but just curious. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands.
Okay.
Next slide.
I'll bring more information back on that.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can see this. But this gives you an idea of what our folks that are picking up trash here are dealing with. That's typically what this looks like. So I mean, we have a pickup there, we have lights, flashing lights and all of that, but you can see that nobody slows down.
Wow.
And this just becomes, to me, a safety issue for our employees.
So if we discontinue collection there, what do we,
He said waste
what
management.
happens to that?
Within
Roadside
2 miles.
waste?
Oh.
Is someone else gonna collect?
Good question. We haven't gone and explored that much. I mean, there are certain groups that will adopt roadside, and I'm not ultimately familiar with that.
Didn't you say waste management has a responsibility within 2
They
miles?
they do within a couple miles of the landfill, right?
Okay, so
This
we're
is
talking about
outside.
beyond that.
Yeah,
Thank
yes,
you.
this is outside that area.
Right.
So we have been voluntarily collecting this waste?
This is something that was put in place when the initial landfill was sited out there, which would have been the Douglas County Recycling Disposal Facility back in 1988, 9, that time frame. And so that was part of the agreement with the neighborhood. Acres group and so on, and that's continued. To this point, again, this is primarily a safety issue, nothing more for our employees, and I can certainly explore, what are the other options for roadside cleanup. I'll have that conversation probably initially with Tim Leander at the Department of Roads, because this is a state highway.
So do we have a written agreement with the neighborhood association or the SID or somebody?
That, I believe that is within, I'll have to look back and see if it's specifically in the contract now. It was in the contract, and we have continued to do that because we had made that commitment to the neighbors.
And that was like at the 2 miles, within 2 miles commitment?
Now, within 2 miles of the landfill, Waste Management is part of their contract. That is their responsibility. Outside of that, we have used a county personnel, like like in this situation, to pick up roadside debris.
How far outside?
Gosh, that depends. I mean, this right here, I believe, is on the east side of Bennington, I believe. So, I mean, we I believe, go almost all the way, probably over to Blair High Road, or have in the past.
So, how often do we pick up, or what's the schedule?
That just varies. As we see the need in certain areas, we'll go and pick up in particular areas.
Do we have a covered truck ordinance, anything, I mean, not us, but the city or wherever, I mean, is there any ordinance on covered trucks?
Yes.
Okay, have we ever done enforcement on it? Is that where most of this crap is coming from?
Yes and no. So, some of it certainly does. So our enforcement really is, I mean, the sheriff, state patrol, I mean, they will ticket people, but our particular enforcement per se is when trucks get to the scale house,
yeah,
and we see that they don't have a cover over the load, they get assessed that fee.
Can we ticket them at the same time?
We have not done that.
We're not law enforcement.
What?
We're not law
No,
enforcement.
not us,
Yeah.
have the sheriff.
Yeah.
I don't know why not, I mean, if they're driving around with all this crap blowing out and we have to pick it up, I'd be.
If the sheriff sees a car,
Yeah.
they'll ticket him, or a
Yeah.
cop.
I think we need.
Well, I mean, to have a deputy sitting there full time.
No, I'm not saying that, I would figure out some way, I mean,
Right.
be creative, but the other thing is, it's a state highway,
Drones,
so
use
the
drones.
state patrol, particularly if you would continue to use your employees, if you had a state patrol car out there with the lights on and stuff, that would, I'm sure, I think, will slow down traffic, I don't know. You know, it's, if you ever travel on the East Coast, it's amazing, you'll see street projects where they're just widening a street or something, and they had the Massachusetts State Patrol there with full lights and everything blaring, and, you know, I mean, people respond to it, just a suggestion, you know, but, I guess I'd, you know, look into it. I don't have an opinion, do what you want to do. I just worry that waste won't clean it up as well as you can do it. That's what I worry
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Well, they won't because it's outside the 2.5 mile range that they clean it up, and you know, if you drive the interstate much, which is what I do, and you know, you're supposed to either go to the next lane or slow down. If a law enforcement has somebody pulled over, that never happens, ever, which I'm really kind of amazed at. But I think that by stopping it, and I completely agree with the safety issue, but we need to be prepared that we will be getting calls.
Yes.
Because I got them
Right.
continuously about, even when we were doing it,
Mhm.
we got calls, so
Right.
just be prepared.
Yeah, and we get an occasional call.
Yeah.
And we'll respond.
Yep.
We can do something radical and close the lane and make them all go, you know, have somebody stop, slow, come this way. I mean, you really go crazy on them, I don't know. I just think waste management's not gonna do the job we're doing. That's all I'm concerned about.
They're not, they won't do
Yeah,
it out here.
It won't be waste management, it
Uh-uh.
would be some other group or somebody else.
Like an environmental group.
Somebody else.
Really? So we don't have any liability if they get creamed?
Who's responsible ultimately
See-
cleaning up the highway, I guess, would be my question.
Well, it's a state highway, so I guess my conversation will be with the Department of Roads, and I'll vet that question through them.
I'll pay to have a sign made, this highway cleaned by Republicans. A bunch of Republicans out there cleaning.
Cleaning up another Democratic mess.
Oh, my God. It'd be worth it if a few of them get hit. Oh, no.
Okay, this is going downhill.
Let's go on to the next one.
All right, put this in here
No
just
more
for clarity.
landfill, we're done with this.
I put this in just for Claire. This is just a, we were mentioning weed control. Just an FYI, today, I mean, you had an item on your agenda setting some special assessments on property where we've done forest control. Mike will be in front of the board next month to do his annual weed report, and we'll try to have a little bit of additional information. Commissioner Boyle, I'll follow up on your request for some additional information. Next item is just an update on our comprehensive land use plan update. We are going to be scheduling some stakeholder meetings. A couple of you have provided some additional names for folks to be included on the stakeholder meetings. And what we're doing with those is just simply getting some input on some specific issues that will be unique to this particular comp plan update. So if you have anybody that you'd still like to submit as far as a name, if you can get that information to me this week, I will add them to the list.
Mike?
What are the area they're considering? I see RDG down there. Is that Marty Schukert or somebody else?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Marty
so-
Schukert.
And what are they planning for? The area that's outside the city and the county, or something else?
This is the city's planning and zoning jurisdiction. It's about 55 square miles outside of the planning jurisdictions of the municipalities.
Okay, I'm missing this, and this is the area that's controlled solely by Douglas County.
Correct.
Okay, so it's pretty far west and pretty
West
centered around
west and
Valley.
north.
Huh?
West and north. Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry. What are they planning?
This is to oversee all of our planning and zoning activities, all of the regulations that apply to that particular area.
Okay, thanks.
This is a required full-time, isn't it?
This is required by statute, that to have planning and zoning, you need to have a current and up-to-date comprehensive development plan.
Okay, thank you.
So-
So, next item.
Next item is just we are having some discussions with NDEQ right now. They are in the process of trying to standardize what they're just calling the general permit for the stormwater, which allows us to have coverage under that to meet the federal requirements. So that's in progress right now. DEQ, the new director, Jim Macy, the philosophy is that they want to have a general permit that really applies to the entire state, so that when these renewals come up, they can more efficiently update them and get them reissued, so that we don't have the backlog in that. While that philosophy I agree with, there are some little details to the general permit they're proposing that are a little bit problematic, and so we're just kind of talking through those. So just wanted you to be aware of that. If there are some developments there that I think are not in the county's best interest, I mean, I'm certainly expressing those to DEQ. So other than that, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of changes there. Last item I have is about our stormwater management plan program grant, and I pulled figures here for about the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So going back to 2010, we received that much. It got bumped up to 155 in grant year 2011, and stayed about the same. In 2014, it went down a little bit because they added in the formula, they added Grand Island into the mix of the larger stormwater permit holders, so our take of it went down a little bit. You'll notice though that over here, the thing which you just approved this morning, accepting these grant funds, this is roughly 54% reduction in our grant funding. And so right now, and this really isn't going to affect us in big time until 2018, because we have this particular grant fund right here available for the next, in calendar year 2017. But we have to look very seriously at kind of how we're going to go forward, what program elements we're going to have in place. This is going to tie back into that general permit discussion I had just a minute ago, how all that kind of shakes out and what requirements are going to be in that. So work in progress here, trying to figure out what elements, because if we try to keep everything the same, somehow I've got to come up with something to fill in this gap right here. So we're looking at other potential grants to leverage against this. I'm not at this point seeking to come back to the board and ask for general fund funds for this. So that's where we're at right now.
Can you use the dump fees from the landfill to help fund this?
Well, those are, that would be general, all, those revenues come back into the general fund,
Oh,
so
okay.
we would be pulling out of the general fund if we wanted to use it. I'll have a better sense of where this is going by the time some of the budget discussions start coming around in March.
If you double that $5 to 10, you can take $5 and use it for this. Just a suggestion.
Okay, anything else?
I'm sure the city would love that.
That's the way it goes, that's life.
Okay,
So-
I think we can adjourn then.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.